a lot happening between Trinidad and Venezuela, or maybe Venezuela and Trinidad, because Venezuela is again um, saying Trinidad should not underestimate Venezuela in this regard. Now, CNC3 did subsequently have to run a news clipping that says that there's a lot of panic buying happening in Trinidad, and it says that a lot of citizens are relatively scared. The opposition today, through Emery Bronx, is also saying that there's a lot of persons who have mental issues around this time. I don't know where he got his information or where that is coming from. But once more, speaking to us, Trinidad and Tobago, on this very important issue is none other than Captain Gary Griffith. Mr. Knight. Sorry, we just got your audio, Mr. Griffith. Go ahead. How are you tonight?
You hear me okay now?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am hearing you good.
Okay,
How are
great.
you?
Good evening to you. Fine, thank you.
All right. Captain Griffith, you are a former commissioner of police, former minister of national security, former military officer, as well as former national security advisor. As I just said, in this crucial time, what we need is a proper advisor to the Prime Minister, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, on these important international matters. From your observation, Mr. Griffith, how is everything looking? Is it because a lot of persons are questioning whether or not there is a pending war that is going to happen between the United States and Venezuela? How is it looking on your end from your expertise?
Well, definitely. Good evening to you and to your many listeners and viewers again. You don't need to read tea leaves. I mean, there's a pattern. Usually, before any armed conflict between countries, you will start seeing a pattern of certain things developing. And we are seeing it develop. What I think is very unfortunate is that people are trying to point fingers at Trinidad and Tobago, and based on what is being done here. We have to recall and understand that Venezuela have continued to throw shots across the bow at Trinidad and Tobago. They have drawn first blood. It started with Venezuela openly stated that they are aware of terrorists in Trinidad and Tobago, and they want to destabilize Venezuela, and Venezuela, by right, have a right to go and enter any place to extract these individuals, which is virtually is a type of excuse used by a country to invade another country. They have made comments referring to senior politicians in Trinidad and Tobago as drunkards. They have made statements now stating that Trinidad and Tobago is in bed and in cahoots with the United States to have war against Venezuela. They've lied and misled the country. So many times they've stated it. They went recently now here, and the defense minister make statements and virtually in local parlance fasten out of place to state that Trinidad and Tobago by right should not have allowed our international ally to have their vessel land in Trinidad and Tobago's waters. So Venezuela is now virtually threatening us and telling us who must come into our waters. And now you have Venezuela now virtually very, very childish, I do believe, threatening to say that we cannot get part of any negotiation with them as it pertains to the energy sector. With all of these things taking place, people are still pointing fingers at Trinidad and Tobago. We are part of CARICOM, but every single country in CARICOM is an independent state. That there was no federation. It ended before it began with the 10-1. But in the same manner, the CARICOM needs to understand that Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, we are the ones that are being affected. We are the ones that are being threatened. We are the ones that Venezuela continue to point fingers at. The things that people are accusing the United States of doing with Venezuela, in that their claims that the United States is trying to poke the bear to justify attacking Venezuela. Venezuela is doing the same thing to Trinidad and Tobago, and by right, we must have the ability to protect ourselves. I do hope that the Prime Minister has the type of advice and expertise. This is a time Trinidad and Tobago has never experienced this. 1990, when I was the youngest officer in the coup, that was child's play. Those were 100 misfits that didn't know how to deal with the situation. We dealt with them in a few days. This is a situation where it is external aggression. Thankfully I drafted that Ministry of Defense for Kamala Persad-Bissessar since 2010, anticipating something like this. The Ministry of Defense is supposed to be the front line. Unfortunately, you're hearing more of the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs and the Ministry of Homeland Security. The Ministry of Defense has not said a word. No fault of the minister, but the Ministry of Defense does not have what I strongly recommend. There are so many qualified experts in regional security, such as retired Brigadier and Generals Carl Alfonso, John Sandy, Ken Maraj, and then we have Chief of Defense Staff from Anthony Franklin, Kel Scholl. These are the type of people that should come together, form a think tank to be able to give guidance to the Ministry of Defense, upon which it can then be forwarded to the Honorable Prime Minister so she can make informed decisions.
Let me ask you this then, Mr. Griffith. Would you say that Kamala Prasad Bissessar today is A, saying the right thing, and B, doing the right thing when it comes to Venezuela and Trinidad and the imploding relationship right now? Because Kamala Prasad Bissessar's stance is all mainly, as the PM keeps saying, for citizens and for country, and is against the drug cartels, and it's nothing against Venezuela, but simply against the illicit trade that happens between Trinidad and Venezuela. Would you say that she's taking the right approach, or should she be maybe doing something different?
Well, I might be biased because you all would have known my style as a Minister of National Security, as a Commissioner of Police from the one shot, one kill. My take on it has always been do it to them before they do it to us. And Kamala Prasad Bissessar has shown the type of leadership that I think it's virtually exactly what I would have done. When people speak about all of these things, they speak about due process and by right we need to sit back and allow things to happen. We can't sit back and allow Venezuela to press that button. One missile from Venezuela can annihilate all our military installations. We need to get the support from our international allies through that known as SAMs, surface to air missiles. The last administration, we left. I remember when I left as Minister of National Security with the same Kamala Prasad Bissessar as Prime Minister and Chair of the National Security Council. We left the Coast Guard with 12 diamond vessels, a Chinese vessel over 100 meters that can train hundreds of Coast Guard officers. The PNM government left those things abandoned for 10 years. So the Coast Guard right now have virtually nothing in the water to protect us. They do not have the manpower strength to equate with asset acquisition. The Air Guard, we left them with 4 helicopters, with 2 aircraft, everything. Now the Air Guard, they have no helicopters, there's no aircraft, there's no drones. They don't have a, David, I don't know if you ever heard of the chikichong. They don't have a chikichong kite to fly, the Air Guard. There's nothing that they have. And that's because of the last administration's incompetence in not understanding the importance of our defense. That is why when I drafted that Ministry of Defense was to make sure our military personnel are prepared, they are trained, they have the preparation for any eventuality. And as I said, that same vessel you're seeing there, the same United States that people are about talking, they offered me 2 of those vessels at no cost to help Trinidad and Tobago's border protection. Those exact vessels, about 20 years old, but still, you're talking about the United States willing to give that to me when I was Minister of National, well, not me, I should say, the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And I made that agreement with them because they were willing to support us. They have provided intelligence gathering, equipment, training, technology. Venezuela have never provided anything for us. What Venezuela has provided for us, let me be clear, for decades before I became minister, this will be before you were born as well, David, Venezuela continued to abuse and harass our fishermen for decades with the La Guardia Nacional, until when I got those diamond vessels, that 12 vessels at the cost of 1.2 billion TT less than the OPVs. I told the Guardia National, I asked for an immediate meeting with the defense minister of Venezuela, the defense minister at the time. He brought all his heads of national security to Trinidad and Tobago, and we signed a bilateral agreement with them promising never to invade our waters again. Because I told them, I said, now that we have these diamond vessels, if you cross into our territorial waters, because they were net season vessels, season the catch for decades. I said, if you do it, we are going to fire at you because you're entering our waters. I was prepared for that to protect our citizens and our sovereignty. And Venezuela agreed because sometimes bullies need that. So the comments being made by Kamala Prasad Bissessar, while some people may not like it, at times you need to stand up to a bully. And Venezuela, what they have been doing about we're not giving you our gas, calling people drunkards, stating that we have terrorists, stating that they intend to invade our space. All of these things that they've been doing are now attacking us because we decide to bring a foreign country to have their assets, their naval vessel land here. They are bullying us, and by right, if we don't stand firm, we are good. What they're doing, they are testing to see how far they could go. So the same way people are accusing the US of doing with Venezuela, they're doing the same to us. And if we can get the international allies to support us, as much as I know CARICOM, they want a zone of peace. How could you call it a zone of peace when you have a country virtually telling Guyana 1/3 of a vast majority of your rich minerals and land space we want, and we think it belongs to us, and we intend to seize it. And you in CARICOM, you have said nothing. How it is that CARICOM, you're here in Venezuela, virtually tell Trinidad and Tobago, we know you have people in Trinidad and Tobago that want to destabilize Venezuela, and we intend to invade your country if it is that, if we want. That's virtually what they have said. And CARICOM has said nothing. So in the same manner, I think CARICOM needs to sit back and analyze what Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana we are going through. It can't be that because our houses are on fire in Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, you intend to wet yours. If we're affected in any way based on the implication or the repercussions of any armed conflict between the US and Venezuela, it is not just going to affect Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, it will affect CARICOM. So we need to work together. It must not be a situation of us versus them or a tit for tat. I think it involves proper dialogue, but also, more importantly, getting the qualified security experts in CARICOM to work together. Because I don't think there's any politician now as a prime minister who has military training. I don't think any minister of national security has any military training. So it requires the expertise. Thankfully, the new chief of defense staff, he is very well qualified. I worked with him whilst I was in the defense force. I was in the army, he was in the Coast Guard. And I think the defense force is in very good hands. But what it requires is the support from the state and definitely the support from the country. The young men and women in the defense force, many of them may not have been prepared for the eventuality. We need to make sure there's proper psychological preparation for these individuals for what may transpire. Having said that, I will quickly add, what must happen as much as possible is dialogue and communication to prevent what may take place. But CARICOM stating what they call this a zone of peace and demanding peace, that and nothing can very well be the same thing, because that's not going to put a rippling effect on the United States or Venezuela. What they intend to do, what they do can affect us in CARICOM.
I like that you say that, Mr. Griffith, because I have not heard that level of conversation yet, at least put towards CARICOM for proper dialogue when it comes to the impending war between the US and Venezuela. It has always just been peace, 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 and never about what Venezuela is actually, being a transshipment from Trinidad or from Venezuela to Trinidad, etc., to the wider world. But mainly back home to Trinidad and Tobago for just one quick second. The opposition today is saying that the citizens' mental health is at risk in this regard of the war between Venezuela and the United States. I want to get your take on this, but I want you to hear it for yourself, and I want you to hear the opposition yourself. Emery Brown, outside of the parliament, was asked about the impending war between the US and Venezuela, and Emery Brown said this.
There must be concern. We're also concerned about the mental health of a number of our citizens, especially older persons who, despite the blasé refutations of the Prime Minister, are very, very concerned. Some of them are quite terrified, and it would help if there's some transparency.
So that there, Mr. Griffith, was Emery Brown. What's your opinion?
Mr. Brown, but this is the same Emery Brown who also stated that SORT was to be shut down because the US claimed that SORT was involved in extrajudicial killing. Even though SORT, not one officer in SORT, the Special Operation Response Team, was ever convicted, charged, or arrested in any form or fashion for extrajudicial killing. Yet he misled the country and the United States, because it seemed that the PNM government had a problem with SORT because we were pushing hard to peg back the same type of drug trade and terrorist elements that the present Prime Minister is now speaking about and she's opposed to. So, and then he's stating that how the United States is involved in extrajudicial killing. So he seemed to have been an extrajudicial killing expert then. Now he seems to be an expert as it pertains to persons with mental state. In any situation with armed conflict, all countries, there's going to be panic. There's going to be sometimes panic based on lack of information, fake news. But the panic sets in not in this situation is not based on I think what the government is doing, but by others. You have someone on social media have the audacity to put something on social media to state to do as if she's speaking to the president of Venezuela and telling him, this is the house of the prime minister, don't miss. When you do things like that, that is what will cause panic. That is what is going to cause people to be terrified. And I think it is appalling that in a situation like this, where the country must be united, people are deliberately trying to have an internal civil political war in Trinidad and Tobago to divide the country, when the country more than ever should be unified. This is a time where we need to be unified, because there's one prime minister, one government, one Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. The type of nonsense being stated on social media is totally uncalled for. Nobody is stating that you can't criticize, but to make comments like that, that is what is going to cause panic. What I would strongly recommend to the Prime Minister is that same National Operations Center that she approved with my guidance, the establishment in 2014. It needs to be re-established, but it is not a police operations center.
And before you go there, I actually listened to one of your videos, your budget video actually. I know Gary going to that command center. But continue, Mr. Griffith. And I agree with you 100%. But I want you to, if you could real quick, specifically tell the viewers why why the command center really needs to be put directly under the office of the Prime Minister.
Well, again, in this situation, this is the perfect situation. The National Operations Center is there to deal with any natural or man-made disaster, any major carnival event, any major fete. The next two World Cup games where we'll have 20,000 plus in this national stadium, a CPL game, mass traffic congestion, major floods, hurricanes, earthquakes. That is what the NOC is for. That is not about policing. Policing is a very small part. That's why we call it the National Operations Center, not the Police Operations Center. In this situation here, the critical nature of that NOC is to make sure all arms of the protective services work together. Because if this situation with the United States and Venezuela goes south, literally, and it escalates, it is not just the police is going to be involved. The police will have probably the smallest part in the protective services to play, apart from the Army, the Coast Guard, the Air Guard, the Customs, the Immigration. So that is where the NOC comes in. Additionally, and finally, the NOC is to provide that communication platform, not just for the arms of the protective services to get information in real time, but for the public, because the public is being misinformed constantly by persons who, for example, a man refers to himself as a regional security expert. The man has never gone further north than Shaka Shakari, but he's a regional security expert. And all his comments continue to be to attack the government's decision. Now he's making recommendations to the Prime Minister what she should say. You've never been a politician. And those are the things that can cause problems. Those are the things that can cause panic. If the NOC gives information in real time, it takes away fake news, it eliminates stupid comments, it eliminates persons who self-appoint themselves as regional security experts with an obvious agenda. And with that, proper information being fed to the public will minimize the possibility, as Avery Brown will say, of people going mad.
Agreed. I 100% agree there, Captain Griffith. I am not scared. I don't know if you are. Are you at all afraid, Mr. Griffith?
Well, I think that's an unfair. Remember, I am trained for this. I live for this. I started my military career looking under vehicles in the United Kingdom with the IRA and patrols with the Irish Republican Army. I've done exercises in Cyprus. I was with the United Nations in Haiti. I was the youngest officer in the coup. I got there were 43 death threats with me as Commissioner of Police because I was taking the fight to the criminals that the PNM government was very concerned about, which is why they had to take me down. So I am used to this, but I'm not the average citizen. The average citizen, I am concerned how they will feel, how they will think, and that is why it is important that the Prime Minister gets proper guidance. I don't think right now there's any serving senior military officer close to her that or past that can give her advice. Civilians and politicians can't advise a Prime Minister in a situation like this. In a situation like this, you will always see it. You'll see it in all these movies. The President or the Prime Minister, you will have somebody at a very senior level as that person's right hand to guide them. This is a situation where the Prime Minister requires the expertise, and she does. I mean, her previous ministers of national security take me out of the equation because people say are looking for work. So forget about Gary. You're looking at John Sandy, you're looking at Carl Alfonso, you're looking at Ken Maraj, you're looking at Brigadier General Philip Spencer, who dealt with the SOE when Kamala Persad-Bissessar was Prime Minister. So there are many persons who have the capability to guide her, to support her, to advise her, and the Ministry of Defense that is very silent at this time. that being done would allow the Prime Minister to say the right things, do the right things. I'm not saying she is not this time, but as it gets deeper and more sensitive, she needs to make sure she has that support and guidance, not from politicians, but those persons who are very well trained in the art of warfare, the art of combat, and how to negotiate to stop something from escalating like this.
I do appreciate you 100%, Captain Griffith. I think, if anything is to break out, I think it's fair to say, go back to him. Let me make sure and say this with Captain Gary on the line. I think it's fair to say the nation can call 624 Gary.
I mean, first in the line.
Trinidad and Tobago, speaking with me again, former Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith, former Minister of National Security, also former military officer and former National Security Advisor. Captain Griffith, thank you so much again for joining.
My pleasure.